Here we go, back from the bye week, and some former Redskins are coming into town for a visit. Will the gentleman Garcon and young Shanny get their revenge on what used to be their hometown? We're going to talk about it right now on the Hog's Eye.
By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
So, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We only gave you one show last week because it was the bye week, and we're not going to, kill ourselves on a day when nothing's going on. But here we are, so it's just me, Alex, and of course, Steve is always here. So, Steve, welcome back from, did you have any time off, really? No, I don't think you did.
No, not at all. I mean, it's a bye week for the team, but not a bye week for regular folks in their regular life. And in terms of hog size stuff, my entire week was filled up with stuff, of course.
Yeah.
So, yes. But I really want to know exactly what you meant by gentleman Garcon.
Well,
I heard that term.
Because I thought Pierre Garcon was always a, good, classy guy. So,
except when he wore those, the fang teeth on his...
Oh, yeah. I mean, he came off as, like, a bad guy on the field, but in terms of his off the field...
And when he threw Robert Griffin onto the bus for not, a couple times for not throwing him the ball.
Okay. Yeah, there was that, too.
Well, he's a little hot-headed, but he's a receiver, so
maybe I meant gentleman, like, in the 1920s boxer sense. Like, he...
Gentleman Jack Johnson, wasn't
exactly.
his nickname?
I feel like every boxer in the 1920s was nicknamed the Gentleman.
Certainly not like what it is today.
No.
Because we've got, Floyd Mayweather is pretty much opposite of a gentleman, and Conor McGregor, I don't know what the hell that guy is.
Oh, yeah. I think we can all agree, modern boxers.
You know what's weird about that is that Mike Tyson has become the most sane boxer around. Have you noticed this? This is off topic.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Shockingly enough, Mike Tyson is a smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
You ever notice this? He's very well read. He knows a lot about a lot of things, and it's mind-boggling to me to see that the guy we watched back in the late 80s, early 90s is actually smart.
Well, his post-career business sense has actually been pretty impressive.
Once he got off the coke and hookers.
Well, yes, but I said business sense. Coke and hookers is not technically business sense unless you're maybe a offensive line coordinator down in
Chris Forster,
Miami. Yeah,
what a dummy! Can you imagine? And what a dummy! I mean, first of all, who videos himself? First of all, boys and girls, don't take drugs because it's bad.
Right, especially
it's illegal cocaine. And it's bad for you. Yeah. But more than that, if you're going to insist on doing it, why are you videotaping yourself?
Right.
And if you're going to videotape yourself, why are you sending it to a hooker?
Mm-hmm.
Because as you said, sending anything to a hooker is generally bad, but especially videos of you snorting coke.
Right. Well, I don't want to get into too much detail about this, but when I had to do my background check way back for the government, it was just because, they ask you a lot of questions about, well, have you ever done drugs and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things I brought up to the person doing my background check is, how come you never ask people if they are having sex with prostitutes or, any of that stuff? Because then you're around people who like to blackmail you for money. And that's a big.
How do you know they're not looking into that for security clearance? Do you have a security clearance?
Well, I have a minor security clearance.
Okay, so you don't have so if you do a real security clearance,
right?
They do dig into that kind of stuff, depending on what level you.
Okay, they do.
They will find it.
I was wondering why.
If you have a high enough clearance, they will find it.
Sure,
stuff like that.
Sure, but to me, it's just like, why? I mean, if you're worried about people getting blackmailed, shouldn't you really worry about the hookers more? Because I feel like they blackmail people.
If you get a high enough one, they'll go interview people who knew you and go to your hometown and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Well, they did that for mine. They asked everyone in my neighborhood about me.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, it's different.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure if you and
I didn't get that
ones,
high,
which is a whole nother level.
Yeah. This is a security clearance hour, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about government.
If you're
going to
do drugs and send a video to a hooker, it's not a good idea. Never a good idea.
It's not a good idea to do anything with a hooker. I realize people have needs, and okay, fine, but just remember that hookers are dirty and nasty and gross.
Yeah.
And, if you're asking them to uphold something like secret and moral,
Right.
don't,
But even sending them a video of you saying, "Hey, hooker, here's my family and my kids," that's probably not a good idea either. Like,
No, it's really not.
no videos to your hookers.
And if you're going to pay them, don't write a check. That's the other thing.
That's legal advice. Free legal advice from Steve.
I mean, you're leaving a paper trail, That kind of stuff happens. People are not smart out there.
I believe it. I sadly believe it.
You know who's somebody who is smart?
Who's that?
Kyle Shanahan is smart.
Oh, yes. Kyle Shanahan is a very, very smart young man. And I say young man when I know that I think he's technically,
He's
3
probably
years
your
older
age.
than me, 4 years
Yeah.
older than me, something like that. He's between
In the
your
realm
and
of
my
football, he's just pretty smart. He's a young man.
Yes.
But he is smart. But I can't really. Honestly, I've beat my head all week over the San Francisco 49ers game because I can't quite figure out the 49ers. There's a whole crowd of there's a contingent. There's one line I thought I heard where you look at them and go, they're 0-5.
Right.
They've got bad numbers.
Right.
They've played mediocre teams. They suck. But then you look at them and say, well, they've been in every single game. They've been in.
Except for the first game, yes.
Well, even that game was 12-9, for God's sake.
No,
wasn't that the score?
Wasn't
talking
the
about
Panthers?
the Seattle game? Oh, I was talking about the Seattle game.
Okay.
Yeah, the Panthers game they're kind of out of. But, I mean, other than that, they've been in every game.
Yeah.
But then you look at, their quarterbacks. It's tough to make out.
I
It's tough to figure them out to me. What do you think?
I mean, I'm
General
kind of with you.
big
I've
picture.
watched a lot of, I hate saying watch the film because it makes us sound like we do nothing but watch film. But I've watched, highlights, and I've gone back and
Might as
watched
well
some
make
of
use
the.
of that subscription we have.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
God's
Well,
sakes.
and I love that 30-minute version of every game that you can watch.
I always watch all 22. It's a lot,
Well,
lot more
I
instructive.
prefer to watch that really quick, watch the whole game in 30
Condensed
minutes
film.
thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just can't get a great read on what are they doing. Well, okay, I can tell you one thing they do well, and that is it's a Shanahan team. They run that zone run game like any Shanahan team has in the past. And they're decent at it. I mean, not great.
Well,
they don't have a
let's
great
talk
running
rushing
back.
numbers. I agree. Let's talk rushing numbers, though.
Yeah, yeah,
'cause
sure.
We can give you guys, so even though we can't quite figure this out, we can give you guys some good numbers out here. So they're a little bit of a mystery wrapped up in enigma. In just as an example, they're 24th in points,
Right.
but 17th in total yards. So they've gained a lot more yards than they've actually scored points. They're 20th in rushing yards, but yards per attempt,
Right.
14th. Which and then they've thrown 194 passes on the year, which is 7th. So what that shows is they've passed the ball a whole lot. They've run the ball pretty well, but their yards haven't accumulated because they haven't run it very much. And you go to a guy like Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde's a pretty good running back. He's averaging 4.5 yards per attempt. He's gained 332 yards on the year. For some weird, unfathomable reason, he's been losing carries to Matt Breida, which I don't quite get because Breida is only averaging 4 yards an attempt.
Right.
But Hyde is a pretty good running back. And as a matter of fact, I dare say, other than Kareem Hunt, Hyde's probably the best running back we've seen this year.
Well, in terms of who the Redskins are going to have
Yeah, in
played so
terms
far?
so far.
Yeah, I mean, why am I blanking on the Rams running back? He's good.
Gurley, but statistically, Gurley stunk.
Yeah.
Gurley had a lot of receiving yards and everything. Gurley had the best game of this season thus far against us. But going into that game, we talked about this on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, he was only averaging like 3 yards a carry.
And he was down last year too.
Yeah,
but
he's down there in like Samaje Perine territory.
I mean, you and I both know running backs in the NFL now, they might have 1-2 good seasons and then never be heard from again.
They are fungible assets.
Yeah. It's a weird thing now. I feel like that wasn't the case back in the 80s or whenever,
It clearly wasn't. And if you go to a guy like Adrian Peterson, it's lasted forever. He's kind of done, washed up now. But,
right.
I mean, there's a couple of those guys out there. But back to the 49ers.
Right.
Point is, I think what we see in the 49ers is that they are a fairly good running team in terms of what they can accomplish when they...
And I think it's mostly scheme in that case, by the way.
Yeah, because Shanahan, in case anybody out there doesn't realize, like you said before, Shanahan is running a outside zone scheme, exactly like what the Redskins ran when Mike Shanahan was here.
Right, and Kyle was, being his son, he has his father's offense.
Yeah.
It's his own passing game. That's unique, but,
Now,
it's good
for the Reds. it's good. But which is good for the Redskins is that Brian Hoyer happens to be the quarterback.
Right.
Now, the 49ers may have the worst quarterback situation in the NFL.
The Jets would challenge them.
The Jets would challenge them, but the Jets have won a couple games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but, they've got the only people they really have on the roster are Brian Hoyer and C.J. Beathard, who is Alex's pet, toy from the draft, who is
the grandson of Bobby Beathard, which is the only reason I even cared.
Yeah, I know. But those are their quarterbacks. And let's just go over Hoyer here for you guys. Hoyer, on the year, 194 attempts, 1,211 yards, 59.3% completion percentage, 4 TDs, 4 interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 75.8, which is 28th in the NFL.
Right.
75.8, if you went back to about 1965, would be a halfway decent quarterback rating. Mm-hmm. But in today's NFL, that's just substandard and bad.
And that's just on the year, you said, right?
That's on the year. That's just this year. Yeah. If you want his career numbers, I can give you that.
Well,
too,
I was glancing at him earlier because I was kind of wondering when. Because I remember Brian Hoyer had, what was it, a year and a half with the Browns where he was actually decent. And it was actually the last time the Browns ever won more than one game a year. It's been a couple seasons now. But, okay, so back then he was probably 29, 30. He was a decent quarterback for the Browns. Not great, but serviceable.
In the realm of by the Cleveland Browns standards, he was like Y.A. Tittle or somebody.
Yeah.
But that's by the Browns standards.
Right. But since then, he hasn't done much, and it's been 3 or 4 seasons. I kind of look at Hoyer, I'm wondering, why was he even given a starting job this year?
Well, I mean, first of all, Hoyer is 31 now, so he's not quite as old as you think he is.
Oh, really? He just has that old face.
Yeah, he does. He does. In terms of career numbers for Hoyer, he's an 83.6 career quarterback rating.
Not terrible.
The year you're talking about in Cleveland was 2013. Had an 82.6 rating then, but his completion percentage has never been good. He only had 1 year that he was even over 60%. That was in Chicago.
Wow.
He only played a couple games there.
Oh, yeah, I forgot he was in Chicago, right?
Yeah, he's been all around everywhere. If you name a team, he's been a quarterback for him. His best year actually was in Houston in 2015. Played 11 games, started 9, had a 91.4 quarterback rating.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, and so that was probably his best year, and then they summarily got rid of him, after that. But I think more relevant to right now, I think it's a very positive situation that Brian Hoyer happens to be the quarterback that our defense is facing.
Yeah, I mean, I one of those stats that stood out to me when I was looking over his numbers, 15 sacks already on the season. I mean, that's pretty heavy. That's 3 a game for them. And let's be honest, if you look at that schedule, they haven't faced a lot of elite defenses. They faced 2 good ones, but
yeah, and they have talent on their offensive line, too. They've got Joe Staley, who's one of the best in the NFL at left tackle. Laken Tomlinson, decent guard.
Right.
So they do have some talent on the offensive line, but, when you've got other problems.
Right. And if
things like sacks tend to compound.
Let's not forget, if you're building a zone run offensive line, you're going to get sacked more. We saw it with the Redskins, in the pre-Robert Griffin Redskins with, Grossman and McNabb. They got hit a lot because you have those smaller linemen.
Building. I don't think Kyle Shanahan would say they're done building.
Oh, no. They're just getting started.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
I think that if you're looking at this team and you're trying to think back to the Redskins that they probably compare to, it's not the 2012 Skins. This is probably your first 2 seasons of Shanahan type team.
2010, 2011.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like it or not, Griffin was awesome in 2012, and so you kind of have to take that out of the equation anyway.
Right. Oh, yeah. I think that's fair. The thing that interests me or worries me about the offense on the 49ers, it's 2 guys, really. It's Hyde, who we talked about, and then it's Pierre Garcon, who easily leading their team in receptions and yardage and everything but touchdowns, really.
Yeah.
And, he's still that... maybe talk me out of this, Steve. Is it me just also kind of wishing he was still here a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah?
Let me tell you. I like Pierre Garcon, but I will take you back to 2 years ago, I believe it was. He had over 100 catches,
Yeah.
100 receptions on the year, and he wasn't voted in the Pro Bowl. And you know why he wasn't? It wasn't just because he was a Redskin. It was that Pierre, I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't bash Pierre, because I do like him, but Pierre Garcon doesn't scare anybody, okay? He's a competent receiver. He's a quality receiver. He's a professional. He's got great hands. He's physical.
He's passionate.
All of that.
He brings a lot of leadership to the team at times.
All that stuff, but this ain't Randy Moss,
No.
okay? He's not a guy that defenses that have halfway decent to quality secondaries are going to have to double.
Mm-hmm.
So I think while you and I and Redskins fans are more focused on Pierre simply because we know so much more about him.
Right, and have a lot I think that you won't find a Redskin fan who doesn't respect what Garcon did for 4 years.
Yeah, I respect the heck out of him, but he doesn't really scare anybody. He's more of sort of a possession receiver plus.
Sure.
If you want to be objective about it, the guy who scared everybody when they were here was Deshaun.
Right.
Not Pierre.
Right.
And Jordan, because he's such a mismatch problem. Pierre was the guy who's like the Art Monk of 2016
Sure.
or 17. He's reliable. So I don't think that the 49ers have anybody who really can scare anybody. They've got Marquise Goodwin on the other side who's fast.
Yeah.
But, they've got Aldrick Robinson, old friend Aldrick Robinson.
He's still around?
He is.
Wow.
Yeah, he's on the roster,
Wow.
God help us. Who knew?
Yeah, I would have thought he had hung it up by now. But, yeah, okay, looking way down the stat chart, you're right. He has 7 catches.
Way down the stat chart.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yep. 7 catches.
Who else is on this team is Logan Paulson is on this team,
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I mean, he was always a Shanahan favorite. Kyle, particularly.
He was a traditional tight end in like the old school tight end mode.
Blocking tight end.
Yeah. Yeah. But back to the 49ers as a whole.
Well, he is a 49er.
Yeah, I know. But, Logan Paulson, if Logan Paulson is a difference maker, they need to find a new difference maker.
Yes, that's probably true.
God bless, Logan. I'm sure Mr. and Mrs. Paulson are proud of him, and he can do stuff that I can't ever do for sure.
Right.
But
he could probably bench press either of us. He
could probably bench press both of us together.
Yeah,
but he's not Tony Gonzalez, okay?
No, but he's a quality blocking tight end. If you need a blocking tight end, you won't find one much worse or much better.
So, Redskins defense versus 49ers offense, I think if I'm the defensive coordinator, I want to make Brian Hoyer beat you. Because Brian Hoyer can't beat you.
That's the first thought I had, too. I mean, this is a team that they're going to run a lot of outside zone, so it's going to put pressure on your edge guys.
And your linebackers. And of course, we have a good one now in Zach Brown.
Right. So, and hopefully he's doing okay, because I heard he was sick this week. But
yeah, we'll get to the injury report later.
Because I don't know what the details are of that. I'm kind of wondering.
So I'm wondering if he's Steven Strasburg sick or if he's actually sick.
Right. Well, we'll talk about that because I actually have a little tangent about that.
Okay, we'll go. Yeah, we'll do that at the end of the show because it's not the Nationals hour.
No. Anyway, when it comes to that that offense, I'm with you. I think you try and stop the run, make Hoyer go and beat you, and as long as you're covering their numbered 1 and 2 guys, which are Garcon and I guess Goodwin, right? I mean, those are probably their top 2. Well, okay, looking at their stat sheet,
receivers.
Kittle.
I mean, the tight end Kittle and Goodwin and Garcon are the 3 go-to guys.
Yeah, and then Hyde has a lot of catches because he's their starting running back. Just kind of play a basic coverage on those guys. I think we'll be okay.
I didn't give my rant at the beginning of this like I should have. It's not really rant, but this is a game that if the Redskins expect to be competitive for a playoff spot in 2017, you have to win.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I hate to say must win in Week 5, but when you have an 0-5 team in your conference that's traveling from California to Washington, D.C., or Raljohn, Maryland.
You need to take their face and rub it in the mud.
Yes. I don't care how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Lie, cheat, steal, something. Just come. You have to, one way or another, you can't lose this game and consider yourselves a good team in a playoff team. You can't.
You have way more talent on the defensive side of the ball than they have on the offense.
And a much better quarterback.
Well, I'm just saying our defense versus their offense.
Offense. Yeah.
You have way more
we have
talent.
way more talent.
Beat
we
'em.
do. Now, of course, part of the problems with the talent is that Josh Norman is
that's
not
true.
Be there.
That's probably the biggest question mark for the Redskins defense.
Yes.
But I think at least in this game, you just put Breland probably on Garcon the whole time.
I don't think you even do that. I don't think you even have to.
You think you go right left again?
I would go right left.
Okay.
I mean, again, does Garcon scare you? Is Garcon going to grab a
I'm saying he's
65-yard
the only
touchdown
one
from
that
Brian
would
Hoyer?
scare me. That
If anybody does, okay, it would be him. But I think you just play fundamental football, and the Redskins really should be fine here.
Right.
I don't. I see some of the fans out there tweeted us and said, "Is this a trap game?" I don't think this is a trap game. I really don't.
I don't think it's a trap game. I think the only thing you have to worry about is Garcon and Shanahan coming in fired up because they're facing their old team. And, that can motivate some guys. But that's not a trap. That's just be aware that they're going to be motivated.
Well, and I think a trap game is, a team that has a record that's bad, but they have good, they have indications that they're better than their record would indicate. I don't know. Yes, the 49ers played a bunch of teams close, which tells me that they're probably mentally tough.
Right.
And they may play well, but they just have a lack of talent. And they're traveling, on top of that. I don't think it's a trap game. I don't think any of their numbers, other than Carlos Hyde, are anything to write home about. And I don't think it's because they're out there playing the 85 Bears.
No.
I think they're just a mediocre team.
I think an average team would have gone 3-0 in their last 3 games. That's what I think when I look at their schedule.
They played the Colts, for God's sakes.
Yeah, and the Cardinals.
Lost.
The Cardinals have been dreadful.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
They have.
Yeah.
What else on offense? Other thing I want to point on offense, they're just absolutely beyond awful on third downs.
Oh, are they?
Ranked 31st in the NFL in third down conversions. They're 26th in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
Time of possession has been awful. They're the worst team in the NFL for time of possession, which makes sense because they pass so much. Yeah. When you pass a lot and you're not converting on third down, your time of possession is going to be terrible.
Now, come to think of
that's
it,
kind of a
our
symptom.
bad third down ratios, didn't that start during the Shanahans too?
Yes. Oh yeah, it did.
Maybe there's something to that.
Maybe the Shanahans just can't control the ball.
No.
How about that?
Despite being a run-first type family, they can't, you're right. Well, let's switch sides because I'm more curious talking about our offense versus their defense. Because when I'm watching
by the way, before you do
highlights
that, real
and
quick,
stuff,
Marquise Goodwin, I was underestimating his speed. The dude is running a 4.340. I mean, he does have speed.
Yeah, sure.
So I just wanted to emphasize that. But we've seen that before. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, defense.
I don't see necessarily any big hole in that defense that they have. I'm like, usually if you're looking on how do you beat another team, you find the weakness and you just pound it, right? Especially if they're on an 0-5 team, that's usually what happens. I don't see any one hole. I see just everyone beat them by playing just good fundamental, get the ball out of the quarterback's hand football.
I see a lot of mediocrity up and down.
Right.
Even if you look at they have some talent on the defensive depth chart.
Right.
They've got Navarro Bowman, who's one of the best linebackers in football.
Sure.
Reuben Foster's a quality linebacker. DeForest Buckner was highly rated coming out of college.
Right.
Eric Reed's a quality safety. He's hurt this week.
Oh, is he? Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to injuries here, but but they have some talent on the defensive front. But the simple fact of the matter is, this team is 30th in total yards, 28th in yards per game, 23rd in passing yards per attempt. 28th in passing yards, 23rd in passing yards per attempt. They've given up a lot of yards.
Yeah.
Not quite as many points. They've only given up 120 points, but a ton of yards, a ton of passing yards in particular. They're better against the run than the pass.
Mm-hmm.
They're 8th in rushing yards per attempt. They have held their opponents to 3.6 yards per rushing attempt. So this may be a game that we want, especially with Eric Reed hurt.
Right.
In what is his injury here? Reed's got a knee problem. I don't know how serious it is. It's only Wednesday, but point is, when you have a team like this that's mediocre generally, that has quality run-stopping linebackers like Reuben Foster and Navarro Bowman, this may be a game where you want to be a little bit more slanted and slanted towards the pass.
Sure, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think Jordan Reed should be coming in healthy. He's had 2 weeks to heal up. What did we say was a sternum issue?
Yes, Reed. Yeah, sternum.
Yeah. So he's had a couple weeks to heal that up. Get him involved. He hasn't really gotten very involved this week or so far this season. I put out that weird little stat sheet of like percentage of plays, and he's,
Why don't you tell people about that? Because,
yeah, it's just a fun thing, or my version of fun. I've been tracking just the number of.
You know what my huge spreadsheets are.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
right there
well
with
my full spreadsheet's pretty big about it, but I've just been tracking the number of plays every guy's been on the field, and the contributions they've made as percentage of the offense, things like that. And Jordan Reed, for the guy who should be the cornerstone of our passing game, he just, because of his health mostly, he hasn't contributed a whole lot. He's probably 5th or 6th on the charts when it comes to his contributions in passing. So, it's kind of a thing, but I think it's mostly health related. I'd love to see him get involved this week.
Yeah, he hadn't had a good year. I do, this toe problem that they brought up at the end of the preseason,
right? That ended up being
disappear.
A broken toe somehow.
Yeah, or some messed up toe, and we haven't heard a word about it since then. So who knows if he's got a real toe problem and they're just not telling anybody.
Right.
Which that wouldn't be the first time. But certainly, I think Jordan Reed at some point has to get it together and start producing one way or another in order for this team to succeed. Because don't forget, who's the coach? Jay Gruden, our coach, in the offseason said the offense runs through Jordan Reed.
Right.
Remember this quote?
Right. And right now the offense clearly runs through Chris Thompson, not Jordan Reed.
Right.
The eye-popping stat from that chart I made, Thompson's 25% of the offense right now, which is insane for anybody.
Especially particularly for a guy who's supposed to be a third down back.
Right. But even, like, Randy Moss wasn't 25% of his offenses on his great teams. That's just something that doesn't happen.
Well, if you go back to like Herschel Walker in Minnesota.
Okay, yeah, you go way back into the older days. I'm sure Brown back when he was on the Browns was everything. But anyway, just kind of getting back into I think another reason why I say Reed, one thing I did kind of pick up is the Niners were playing a lot of soft zone in a lot of their games. And I think that opens things up underneath, like on the inside of the, field, which is right where Jordan Reed and Chris Thompson really excel. So I'm wondering
that's where they live.
I'm wondering if that's where you target them.
I think you keep doing what you're doing in terms of passing because, I think this offense really only works if you have somebody who is somewhat reliable downfield a few plays a game.
Oh, sure. You still need to take those shots.
Yeah, you have to have that. And, I don't know if it's Josh Doxson, if it's Terrell Pryor, it's somebody, but they can't just go – when I say they have to go a little bit more pass heavy this week, we want to go traditional West Coast offense, but they need to continue going downfield.
Yeah,
and Kurt needs to get used to, more importantly maybe – needs to get used to Terrell Pryor and Josh Doxson.
Well, what was it? Kansas City, everyone says, well, we threw two 50-50 balls and we made one of them. But I think you got to keep doing it. Make it 4. Hey, if it's 4 and you get 2, that's 100 yards probably for us.
Yeah.
So, I'm with you. You do need to still obviously go to those outside guys to keep that threat there and also to show that you can produce out there, even more importantly.
Yeah. Jay talked a little bit about Terrell Pryor in Wednesday's press conference.
What did he say?
We're recording this on Wednesday. He said, like I said before, he's still evolving as a wide receiver. A year and a half of playing wide receiver or whatever it is, he's going to. There's some growing pains there. But you can see his skill set. His skill set is that we like his height, obviously his speed, his length. But there are some things that we just have to continue to clean up. He's very coachable. He said he's a very coachable guy. Kirk Cousins loves working with him.
Right.
So, he's saying the right things about Terrell, and I continue to beat the Terrell Pryor drum only to say that don't forget about this guy. It's not, you can't just walk in and be a pro wide receiver immediately. It is going to take him some time. and that's what I think Jay is saying. And so I anticipate that Terrell's going to get some. He's going to get some looks this week.
I mean,
I think especially
he's gotten looks
against
every
this
week.
defense.
We know that.
Yeah,
It's not been a shortage of looks ever for Pryor.
well, it's gotten less since that first week though.
Yeah.
He's had less targets.
But I think that's also been more Ryan Grant getting more looks because he's obviously somewhat productive for us this year.
and because he has naked pictures of Jay Gruden.
Well, yeah, there might be that. Actually, I don't know if Jay Gruden would even care if he had Nate. Jay Gruden doesn't seem to care about anything like that.
He got kind of upset last year when Deshaun Jackson tweaked his nipple. Remember
right.
that?
And
There's
he
a
also
video.
got upset when a reporter called him fat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think Jay is a little bit more sensitive than we might think. I think if Ryan Grant has, naked Jay fit pictures on his
Sure.
cell phone,
Sure.
he might not like that. too
Okay,
much.
fair enough. But
And for the record, so we don't get sued by Ryan Grant, we're kidding.
yeah, of course. I think everyone would know we're kidding. But I would say, Grant and Doxson have kind of just been getting a few more balls the last few weeks, and that's probably why you're seeing less to Pryor. Because you don't. Kirk Cousins, I heard it was Grant and Danny. They were talking to him on their show earlier this week, and they said this really well. Kirk Cousins is like a point guard. He spreads the ball around really well, but you can only spread it around so much. Everybody's got to get, a certain number of touches. So, the more guys you have involved, the less touches one guy gets.
Well, that and, those elite point guards also at some point have to take a shot themselves every once in a while.
Oh, sure.
And if you want to relate that to football, that means the quarterback has at some point take a team on his back, right?
Right.
And we saw that a little bit out of Kirk Cousins last week against
Those
the
big runs that he had. And
right.
I
against
agree with you
Kansas
totally.
City.
That's what those are.
Yeah.
That's the point guard breaking for the layup,
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Jay talked about that a little bit too this today. He, I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's at length, but he did say, his entire game's evolving. He's a young quarterback. He says playing quarterback is all about experiences, learning from your mistakes, moving forward. And that's what he's doing. And yeah, it's a lot of that's just coach speak, nonsense. But
it's true.
I think. Yeah, but I think also what we've seen this year is Kirk Cousins is trying to become a more complete quarterback. Mm-hmm. He had the horrible game against the Eagles.
Yeah, he's had 3 really good games since then.
Yeah, he has. And his numbers wise, since we're talking numbers.
Yeah, if you want to pop those up.
Yeah, his numbers here. He's got 107.6 quarterback rating this year, which is 4th in the NFL. Yeah. Considering how bad it was at the start, that's darn good. 66% completion percentage. These are what we've come to feel are normal Kirk Cousins numbers.
Yeah, he doesn't put up 400 yards with those numbers, but he is a dink and dunk kind of guy. But
particularly without Deshaun Jackson there to rescue him.
Right. And I think that that's playing into it a little, but not as much as I thought. If you look at his numbers, he's kind of on pace for another 4,000 yard season.
Well, yeah, we're at the quarter pole, right? For the Redskins at least.
So
and
easy
he's got
math.
1,000. Yeah, he's got 1,004 yards, and so that works out to a little over 4,000 yards on the season, which is significantly less than last year. He had over 4,900 yards last year, and so you're talking about a drop of 20%. A little over 20%. And I think you can definitely account for. Part of that is Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, I think losing 20% on Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garcon both leaving. That's not terrible, all things considered, because you're losing way more than 20% of what was your offense last there with those two.
Yeah,
but I'm not worried about Kirk at this point. I think we know what we're going to get from him for the rest of the season. He'll probably have 1 or 2 more bad games. He'll have 1 or 2 really good games. And then the rest will be, he'll hover around 300, in terms of yardage. So I don't really worry about it. I think this is a game where he can maybe rack up some extra numbers for himself, maybe get 4 touchdowns instead of 2 or 3. Maybe he gets to 350 to 400 yards instead of hovering around that 300 marker. I don't think he'll have a monster game, but this should be a game where he puts up decent numbers.
It could,
Playing in fantasy football this week.
Definitely play him in fantasy football this week. It's a 40-5 49ers traveling. Yes. I think we ought to. I think we not do ourselves proper justice. We did not talk about the Redskins running game here right now.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick and then get to injuries because we are kind of running a little behind. But let's do that.
Of
though.
course, nobody's timing.
Where do you want to start in the running game? Because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there is lots to talk about, and with Kirk Cousins, with Rob Kelly's injuries, Jay said today in the presser today that it's unlikely. He said he's a long shot this week is the term Jay used. So we're in the other thing, which he just amazed me. I just don't get it, but I got to read this whole quote. They asked him about Samaje Perine. Here's the quote. He's been progressing fine. He has.
Okay.
He's doing a good job. He's running physical still. This will be a great week for him if Rob can't go. So he'll get the majority of the carries with Brown and obviously Thompson sprinkled in there. I just don't understand it. I don't get it. Look. Samaje Perine.
Yeah, I know you're definitely off the Samaje Perine bandwagon.
Well, when you fumbled twice and you're running at a 3.1 yards per attempt clip, I'm going to jump off your bandwagon. I realize he's got talent.
Don't necessarily blame you for it.
Yeah, I realize the man has talent. He's got an elite collegiate background. I get it. But the running game looks a heck of a lot better when Mac Brown is in there than it does when Perine is in there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can't disagree with all that. Like I said, I've said for a long time, I think Perine should have only been kind of utilized in situational football this year from the get-go. Have him be a goal line short yardage guy, using him as an every down back like they're trying to, I guess. Not really, because
I think it's not doing Perine
Chris Thompson's actually in there more. Yeah, I think you're doing a disservice to Perine by overutilizing him that way.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And I don't know what you can do though right now, other than maybe just go to Mac Brown and hope for the best. If Kelly's out.
That's why I read that quote though. It doesn't look like Jay's going to do that. Based on what Jay has said, expect the Samaje Perine show this week if Rob is out as expected.
Right. A lot of ground and pound, 3 yards and a cloud of dust football.
Right, exactly.
And
all right.
Here's hoping Rob Kelly gets healthy. But, maybe we use a little more Thompson.
Maybe so. Let's do injuries real fast.
Yeah, let's get through that.
All right. For the Redskins, Zach Brown, like you mentioned before, illness, didn't practice Wednesday. I'm assuming that he'll be fine by the weekend unless he's just deathly ill. Rob Kelly has the ankle. He didn't practice. Josh Norman has got the rib. Didn't practice and will be out. Tyan Secchi's going to be out still. Trent Williams has a knee. Didn't practice. Trent's like the Energizer Bunny. He's no doubt going to be in there. Jay at the presser basically said, we'll see. But, it's Trent, so I expect him in there.
Right.
DeShazier Everett, hamstring, didn't practice. DJ Swearinger, limited hamstring. Josh Doxson, Foster, Nicholson all showed up in the injury report, but all practice full. So that is the Redskins. Now, the 49ers have a couple interesting injuries themselves. Navarro Bowman, Pierre Garcon, and Joe Staley all didn't practice Wednesday, but they weren't listed as having an injury. So I don't know if they just had a day off or, they all had hangovers or what's going on.
They're all veteran guys there, so it could be the over 30-day off.
Yeah. Reuben Foster has an ankle, starting linebacker. Greg Kittle has got a chest injury. He's limited. I mentioned Eric Reed before, knee injury, limited in practice. The other starting safety, Ward, also has a shoulder problem, and he was limited. So their secondary is a little bit banged up, so that may play into the Redskins' hands. So that's injuries.
Gotcha. All right, that's good to know. The one thing that kind of I always wonder about whenever I see illness on the injury report, half the time I really think it's just they're hungover and they're just writing illness down. I feel like that was a common thing back in the day. The old flu-like symptoms. Yeah, you're dehydrated and vomiting. That's flu-like. So,
all right, you want to do game predictions
with Brown? Let's do predictions.
All right. All right, I'll go first, I guess.
Since there's...
You go first? Okay.
Yeah, I'll go first. There's only two of us, so it's going to be a short one. I think this is an easy winner for the Redskins, probably their easiest win all year. I'm not saying the Niners won't compete, but I think the Skins can walk away with this one with like a 10-point win. I'm thinking 31-21, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm in that ballpark too. I think the Redskins know they have to win the game. They know they should win the game. 49ers, have their moments, but it's not a good team overall. It's not a trap game. So I'm going to say we just can't ever score 4 touchdowns and not have a field goal or 2 in there. So I'm going to say 27-14 Redskins.
27-14? I'll take a 27-14 win.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. So
you want before we check out.
Oh yeah,
I do have an interesting.
You have one more
I have a couple stats. I have a couple interesting stats here. The Redskins are actually 5th on the NFL total victory list, all time, all franchises going back to the beginning, at 611 wins. Can you guess the team that has the most total wins?
Most total wins. All right, so I know Arizona is the oldest team, but they've sucked for so much of their history. So it's probably not them. I mean, I'm guessing because we're playing the 49ers, you're going to say the 49ers, but...
No, I'm not. They
haven't been
and
around
it's not
that
a hint. I'll give you the hint. I'm gonna give you is don't overthink it. That's
all right. Then I'm gonna say the Chicago Bears because they had so many great early era successes.
That's close. They're number 2 with 762 wins. The Packers are number 1 with 768.
Oh, that also makes sense. Sure.
Yeah, both of those two. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Giants are 3rd, incidentally, and then the Steelers are 4th, and then the Redskins are 5th. And because we've sucked for 20 years, and that's hurt our winning percentage,
right.
Quite a bit.
Our winning percentage actually was in danger of dropping below 500 up until like a year ago.
Yeah, I know. I never wanted to mention that on the show because I always thought I'd jinx us if I brought that up, so I never wanted to mention that.
Right.
But you're right. So
yeah,
and the other
it was something I was keeping track of for a couple seasons.
Yeah, it was too because for those of you who don't know, on our written game preview, we list every week the Redskins franchise win-loss record. So if you want to keep track of it, that's how to do it. The other real quick stat I want to throw in there before we leave is Jameson Crowder. Jameson Crowder has dramatically outplayed his draft position. And if you look at career receptions for wide receivers from the 2015 draft, he's actually 3rd. Despite the fact that he was a 4th-round pick, he's 3rd in the NFL from 2015 wide receivers. Only Amari Cooper and Stephon Diggs are ahead of him. So that just goes to show he's had a quiet year this year, but it goes to show just how productive Jameson Crowder's been, particularly for a 4th-round draft pick who 13 other receivers were drafted ahead of him. And only 2 of them are
and
actually...
who's only, 4 feet tall.
Yeah, I know. So, anyway, those are the stats.
That's an interesting one. I didn't realize he was that high up in his draft class in terms of wide receivers. Yep. He should have probably been a first-round pick.
Go looking if you wanted to redo the draft, sure, but you have to conclude that. But thanks to the Redskins for sending it out. The Redskins send us out that little tidbit of information in the game notes this week.
That's neat. Yeah, that is interesting to note. Okay, well, I think that should wrap us up. We're 15 minutes over ish, so I hope everybody out there. I hope you guys enjoy a good Redskins win over the 49ers. Other than that, just keep following us on Twitter and on Facebook and on, I guess those are really our only 2 big social media platforms. And we will just see you guys after the game. Bye.